Power Hour with John Lee.
Welcome back to the Power Hour, people. I am definitely going to smash it today because I don't give a fuck. It's smashing it time on the Power Hour. I'm John Lee and we're having it large. Like, share and fucking subscribe. Johnny Spence doing all the post-production tang. Today we're going to be talking about gangsters. I like talking about gangsters. You know, just fucking do. And today we're talking about four guys and they've got something very important in common between them, and that is that they're all black. And the reason I've done this is because I feel that whenever we see black gangsters, there's a lot of this talk about black gangsters and hip-hop gangsters, and there were some films in the 90s. There was New Jack City and Menace to Society, Boys in the Hood. You know, there was a rash of these films at the time and they were good. You know, I think they're all good films. I think might be a little bit different, but Deep Cover was my favourite of that time period. But they're always kind of street level gangsters, and we never really see, with the exception that I'll come to in a minute, you never really see films going into the deep dark character of a black gangster that was tremendously successful and organised, not just a fucking brutal maniac. And the one exception that springs to my mind is American Gangster with my mate Denzel Washington. Now, I do know Denzel personally, and we get on quite well. But when he gets too drunk, he takes all his clothes off and does a chicken dance, which I don't really allow in my parties. So that's just between me and Denzel. Anyway, so we don't really see films, with the exception of American Gangster about Frank Lucas starring Denzel Washington. We don't really see films about successful black gangsters who weren't just breaking the law to make some money and kind of, you know, go round the system and hope they don't get caught, but drug lords. So a lot of the films that we see, you know, Scarface, etc., they're kind of based on the mafia films, especially anything with Scorsese. You know, they're all white guys doing it large, and we don't really see the black guys doing it large in the same way, in my opinion. There's too few and far between those kinds of films. And so I'm going to focus on some black guys who weren't pissing around and doing carjackings and shit like that, which is what we normally see. These are serious organised criminals who had a major effect on massive areas of land, you know, huge territories. I'm going to start with Lester Lloyd Kolk, aka Jim Brown. So Kolky, Lloyd, Lester, or Jim, he had many names, and he was from Jamaica, and he grew up in the suburbs of Kingston. Very poor. He was called a sufferer, not him personally. He was part of a group in society there called the Sufferers, and they lived in abject poverty. I read that you can hear this like a constant screaming sound. You know, these people are poor, right? And there's no real access to education. So Lester Lloyd Kolk, he was a nice kid apparently. Wasn't violent particularly. Good guy. He had friends. But he had no access to school. He didn't go to high school because he couldn't go to high school. And he kind of inherited the spirit of the place. So this is a very rebellious place, Jamaica. It was a slave colony. But even when it was a slave colony, they had an uprising every 5 years. It's distinct in that sense. And they were given the kind of freedom from the empire, but it was fake. It's a fake freedom. So now they're not subjected directly by the American government. They're subjected by American corporations and others, facilitated by the American government. And it has always been the case. You know, this has always been the way. And so we remember the classic song, Ayo, Ayo, that. Well, that is an old Jamaican folk song. It's not just a bit of yodeling. The guy says, "Hey, Mr. Tallyman, tally me banana. Daylight come and me want go home." That is about Jamaican guys working on the dock, stacking bananas. And the tallyman is the guy who comes and takes the tally. He counts the bananas. and then he gives them a penny, a fucking banana or whatever, and they can go home before it comes light, and they'll be able to get some sleep. So, hey, Mr. Tallyman, tally my banana. Daylight comes, I want to go home. Sung in a Jamaican style, and so that gives you a flavour of the place that he grew up in. And it was full of political unrest, and there was a Labour Party there, which was actually a far right-wing party. So there's some branding for you. They called it the Labour Party. It was actually far right-wing, and it was backed by the American government and by the CIA. And they probably told them to call it the Labour Party because people will look once and think, oh, they're, normal left-wingers, but, slightly left of centre Labour Party. No, radical right-wingers. And what they did was they had a leader called Edward Seaga. And they'd go to people and say, oh, if you vote for us, we'll give you a house. Right? So they'd build some houses and put people in, but people are going to vote for them. So they put their own voters in these houses and use this to win elections. And then to do the other side of it, they go down to another housing complex or project, and they'd torch the fucking thing. They'd burn it. They'd burn the fucking housing project with everyone in it, and then bulldoze the motherfucker because they're voting for their own people, and build new housing on that patch of land and put the other fucking side in. Oh yeah, our voters live there now. Fuck you. So you can imagine this kind of situation that Lester Lloyd Kolk is growing up in, and he becomes an enforcer for the bad guy, for Seaga, the guy who's doing this, the guy who's backed by the CIA and the American government. And so as he grows up, he gets more and more dangerous. He gets harder and harder, more and more dangerous, and he becomes the Don. And that's what they call him. They call him Dons. He's the Don in a large area of Kingston, central area of Kingston. Is the main man. And he's also the chief protector of the president, Seaga. And so not only has he got complete power in the ghettos and the hoods, but he's also got military fucking hardware at his disposal because he's working for the government. And not just that, he's got diplomatic immunity because he's a direct employee of the president. So you can't fuck with this guy, right? You cannot fuck with him. And he's the leader of a group called the Shower Posse, right? This is a posse, obviously called the Shower Posse. And they're not called the Shower Posse because they all get together in the morning for a shower and soap each other up. Denzel, you forgot your gonads, man. It's not that. They're called the Shower Posse because when they fucking fire the bullets at you, they shower you in bullets. It's fucking naughty. And so what does he do? He takes over the island, in terms of its underworld, and he gets a green card. He's got a diplomatic immunity. He's got all kinds of cards. And he's got 57 different types of, I'm exaggerating, or maybe not. He's got all kinds of different IDs and passports and green cards and whatever you want. He prints them off. So he's coming in and out of America all the time, all kinds of different IDs, identities, names. Sometimes he's Jim Brown, sometimes he's Lester Kolk, sometimes he's not. And the American government have got no idea who he is. But he's bringing the Shower Posse in. And they're for example, somebody owed him some money or fucked around in a fucking coke house. And he cracked them. Walks in there, 5 people, fucking executes them all. Puts a woman down on her hands and knees, bang, shoots her in the face. Right? And that's to send a message. And the Shower Posse, they're killing everyone. They don't give a fuck. They're shooting up the popo, no problem. Because in Jamaica, they don't give a fuck. They'll shoot you. The police are not on whoever's side's got the most money, as they are in every country in the world, but really visibly in Jamaica. And so he's there, Lester, and the Shower Posse, and they're running the crack trade for the Cali cartel. So they're not fucking around. All right, this is major. It's interstate. They're also running weapons all over the USA. They're completely corrupting all kinds of government officials through a guy called Vivian Blake. Vivian Blake was the underboss. He was like the smooth, slick side of the business. If you ever watch The Wire, there's a character in that called Stringer Bell who works under Avon Barksdale, and he's that kind of character. Got more manners to him, looks, you know, more natural in a suit. That was the function really of Vivian Blake. And so these guys were massive, and you know, the shower posse were all over the place. Eventually the DEA gets involved because they get to the level of being regarded as organised crime. And at first they start arresting members of the shower posse, and they don't mind grassing people up. It's a cultural difference. So you know, as soon as you put the cuffs on them, they say, "It was Denzel man. You want to know what Denzel did?" You know what I mean? And they'll fucking testify all over the place, and they go, "Don't give a fuck," you know. And they all do it. And so they started putting down some consequences, the shower posse, and the brutality of the violence kind of toned down how much people were willing to testify about. And eventually, our mate Lester tries to send a big fucking shipment of guns to Jamaica. That gets intercepted. He gets arrested. He gets out. Diplomatic community. Fuck you, see you later. And then he killed some innocent person because he's just a bad man. He just killed an innocent person and got arrested for it. And now we're starting to get a public outcry in Jamaica. These things are normally manipulated. But they put him in prison, right? So he's in prison and he's awaiting extradition. And they're pushing for extradition, and it's going to happen. And then the prison burns down. And Lester Lloyd Kolk is killed inside it. Now, you tell me, this guy is working directly for Edward Seaga, who's the president of the country. The president of the country is directly responsible for the activities of Lester Lloyd Kolk. Lester Lloyd Kolk is the boss of the shower posse who are running drugs all over America for the Cali cartel. Edward Seaga was put in charge of Jamaica by the CIA, which is a department of government in the United States of America. So you've got the fucking White House involved, you've got the CIA involved, you've got the fucking Cali cartel, you've got the Jamaican government, and you've got the Jamaican fucking shower posses. Right, and at the top of it all, you got Lester Lloyd Kolk. And when he outlives his usefulness because he's killing people in the street, they fucking put him in a prison and then burn it down. Oh, sorry, you know what I mean? Prison burnt down and all that. And anyway, thousands of people mourned him at his funeral. He was destroying your fucking communities, peeps. But there's a lot of that. We'll see that on the show today. Kind of hero worshipping those who profit from your destruction. And Christopher Kolk, the son of Lester Lloyd Kolk, became the new boss of the shower posse and was also a brutal bastard. And he's in prison now. He got 27 years. So Lester Lloyd Kolk, a.k.a. Jim Brown, head of the shower posse, major criminal.
Jim Brown bankrolled Tivoli. Much of his wealth came from crack dealing in the United States. His gang, the Shower Posse, led the Jamaican assault on the US drugs market. Some of his riches came back to Tivoli and helped fund community projects.
Brown came to Miami in 1984 to see what was going on with his Shower Posse and their drug dealing activities. And while he was here, in November that year, he walked into a house and executed 5 people. He walked around each one of them and shot them in the head with a .45. Jim Brown is a bad man.
When he was arrested at the request of the Americans, he faced charges of murder, drug trafficking, extortion. From prison, he fought a legal battle against extradition. He lost the fight, but he never stood trial in an American court. It was said that too many powerful people would have been implicated if he had. Jim Brown was burned to death in his cell. Officially accident, more likely murder. Edward Seaga, the former Jamaican Prime Minister and Jim Brown's patron, led a funeral procession of 35,000 people. Tivoli is Seaga's constituency.
Major criminal. major criminal, organised crime figure. And he wasn't really dependent on anybody, although he did deal basically for the Cali cartel. Big time, big time. Let's rock it to Frank Matthews, who's different in lots of ways. Frank, and he's another black man, but he's American. I suppose they're all descended from the slaves, I would suggest. I don't know that for a fact, but I would suggest they did, because Frank Matthews was from North Carolina. Is that deep south? I don't know. I think South Carolina is. Not sure about North Carolina, but it's. I would consider that a southern state from my limey perspective. Correct me if I'm wrong. But he was from a place called Durham in North Carolina, which is not anything that you would associate with the deep south drink. It was a highly sophisticated place, and it was black. And they had a stretch there that they called the Black Wall Street. All black businesses, black owned, black schools, black this, black that. A town, you know, a fully functional town where the population's black. So, I mean, this blows a massive hole in all this fucking shit. Oh, these blacks, you know, doesn't matter where they go, they just fucking do the same thing. No, they get treated the same fucking way, is what happens. And when you don't treat them like shit, they prosper. What do you think? Black people can't run shops and banks and shit like that? Stupid bastard. Of course they can. So in this town, North Carolina, you know, they demonstrated that handsomely. And he was from there, and so he didn't have a lot of these complexes, I think, that were imposed on the black people in America for long periods of time, because, you know, we've got more than you fucking set of twats. And so he's not really doing too well in that environment, and he leaves eventually, and he goes up to New York. I think he was in Philadelphia for a while, and he ends up in New York, and he's working as a barber. Frank, very low-key guy. And he starts making some moves, but it seems like it happens pretty fucking quick. He gets hold of the idea of being a dealer. Right, I'm going to be a dealer. I'm going to sell some products. I'm going to make some coin. And, you know, if anyone gets in my way, I'll just shoot them, you know, and don't leave them in the street. But he had a lot of class, this guy, and so people noticed him immediately, and in the right ways. And he went to see the mafia and said, listen, mafia, I'm going to sell some product. I'll buy it off you. I'll sell it. We'll all make money. And they didn't like his style, and I think it's because he had this drawl, this North Carolina way of talking. And they weren't having that in New York, and they fucked him off, because they did deal with other black dealers in the same area, but they didn't want anything to do with Frank Matthews. So Matthews says, I'll tell you what then, fuck you. I've got another idea. And he gets in touch with the cats in Venezuela. You know, the dealing cats in Venezuela, talking Caracas here. And he makes a deal with them instead. Now, the Caracas boys, they're involved also in the French Connection, which was actually set up by the mafia. And this is where they take heroin from Turkey. It's often refined in some ways and packaged in, I think it's packaged in Sicily. And then it's refined in the south of France. And then they take it from the south of France up into Canada a lot of the time, into Montreal, also into New York, because they can do that. And so he's going down there, Frank Matthews, and he's rocking it with the Venezuelan organised crime. And so he very quickly becomes active, not just in New York, but in the state of New York, and then in Pennsylvania, and, you know, Illinois and Miami. This guy, in short order, is active in at least 21 different states. And when I say active, he's not selling dime bags, he's not fucking around behind McDonald's. He's selling massive quantities. He's supplying the drug trade in those states. This guy is a multi-millionaire. He's a real estate developer. show some kind of income. At one point, he was in a wiretapped meeting, and he lost his temper and just pulled $4 million out of his pockets. This is way back when. This is back in 1970, 1969 maybe. When $4 million was a lot more than it is now. Smash it on the table. Let's do some fucking business. All right, there's my money. Where's yours? Nobody's got that kind of money to play with, you know. And that was actually filmed. It was on camera, that. So people, the authorities, started realising this guy was definitely a player. And he thinks, right, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll buy myself a big fuck-off house. And there's a place called Stod Hill on Staten Island, which is high-level property. Staten Island, New York. High-level property, high-level area, very, very exclusive. No black people. No blacks at all. But what there were a couple of guineas, as they say, Italian Americans. And one of them was Tommy Lucchese, who was the founder of the Lucchese crime family, the New York 5 families. One of them is still called Lucchese. It's the Lucchese family, and that was Tommy Lucchese was the founder of that. Three Finger Brown was one of his names. He had 3 fingers, Tommy. Top businessman, Tommy Lucchese. And another one was Paul Castellano. And Big Paul Castellano was the boss of the Gambinos, the Gambino crime family, before John Gotti. John Gotti and Sammy the Bull Gravano obviously orchestrated his death outside Sparks nightclub in New York. But Paul Castellano, Big Paul, was the brother-in-law of Carlo Gambino, who gave his name to the Gambino crime family. And so Tommy Lucchese and Paul Castellano are not fucking around, big-time gangsters, and they live on the same street as him, right? So they've got it all nice and plush behind the gates and all that. They're joining, what do they call them, the Managat. The Italian Americans call the white man, the proper golfing white man, the Managat or something like that. And they've moved in there. They're suburban as fuck. Paul Castellano's got a big, massive mansion he calls the White House. So in comes Frank Matthews into all this and starts booming out his tunes. He's rocking out his parties. You know, it's bikini flavour on his front fucking lawn. And they're having parties every night. And so, you know, he gets told, you know, you are going to get dead if you carry on with this. I was trying to get some fucking sleep last night and you were fucking around playing Motown classics. And Frank says, fuck you. I'll take a drive through Little Italy, right, down Mulberry fucking Drive or whatever, and I'll blow you fuckers away. And I'll do it in front of everybody, broad daylight styles. And they realised this guy's not fucking around. You know, people saw him down in Vegas. He was a major player down in Vegas. Celebrity styles down in Vegas. This guy was massive. I would say the biggest fucking heroin dealer in history. I don't think there's been a bigger dealer than him. And you can go and watch, you know, American Gangster with Frank Lucas. Absolute bullshit, man. They've made a mix of stories. They've taken stories from the Frank Lucas real life story biography and a lot of bullshit that he told about being Bumpy Johnson's fucking bodyguard, which I'm absolutely sure he wasn't. And they've mixed it up with some other elements of Frank Williams' life because they couldn't be bothered making 2 films, I suppose, and created this story. And even the story of the cop played by Russell Crowe is a lot of bullshit as well. Frank Matthews was the man. If I said Williams a couple of times, I don't know. Frank Matthews was the fucking man, not Frank Lucas. And so, one of the members during all this of the French Connection gets caught, and Frank Matthews is heavily implicated, and he gets arrested, and he's going to be charged. He's going to be fucking. He's going to be Dunskies proper. But the government suddenly drops the case because it's too complicated. You know, because the Venezuelan government is involved, and the American government gives two fucks about diplomatic relations with Venezuela. Yeah, it's too complex, we'll have to drop it. You mean you're up to your fucking tits in it and it's going to come out? Is that what you mean? I mean, you can't explain how all this heroin is flooding into your country and smashing all over your streets, and how everybody makes money from it and everybody goes home smiling. Is that what you fucking mean? Yes, it is what you mean, and that's why Frank Matthews walked away from that.
Frank had more money than the mob. Matthews was the number one. He would have ruled the United States.
Frank Matthews was a much larger drug dealer than Frank Lucas.
He's literally fallen off the face of the earth.
When the cold wind comes, it lives in New York City.
In the 1970s, we had a heroin problem in the country, and definitely in New York City.
A river of money is flowing because business is so good.
It was a gangster town, you know. Nobody wanted to go to New York City.
What evolved here, he took over.
He was a guy that had great leadership skills and knew how to control a product, make distribution all along the East Coast, and control an organization through violence and intimidation.
State senator from Baltimore, and Frank had him killed.
And he had been identified as the largest heroin trafficker in the United States.
He put $4 million on the table, and he says, let me see if you can match this.
Let's face it, they couldn't believe that this black guy, was working in 21 states, with this huge network, and people were coming from all over the country to buy dope from him.
In the 70s, the advent of civil rights, when African Americans were becoming more prominent in business, the drug dealers wanted to do the same thing.
And he hated the Italians because they hated the blacks.
And his goal was to unite and form a family where they cut out the Italian mafia.
Castellano and certainly Three Fingers Brown would have wanted him killed.
But there were a lot of people, even in the Frank's organization, that were killed and executed in Philadelphia.
We never had a solid lead on Frank Matthews. We felt like he had disappeared off the face of the earth.
So he had $15 million and 6 months head start.
Well, then Vito Genovese, the boss of the Genovese crime family, he gets prison. Right? He gets caught and he gets prison. And I think it was mafia people who wanted Genovese to get locked up. He was a trouble causer. And Frank Matthews, at this point, nice one. He becomes fucking absolutely top dog. He's undisputed. And that's when, the walls start closing in on him, as they say. They want him in prison, they want him off the streets, they want him out of hair. Everybody does. And so he just fucks off. All the money's gone. Frank Matthews is gone. And his girlfriend's gone. They've been seen all over the world since. This is way back when. This is 40 years ago. More. And they just disappeared. They went down to an airport. They were down in Texas. And they've never been seen since. And I've seen interview after interview with CIA guys, FBI guys saying he's still fucking alive. He's still alive. He got his money, changed his identity, and fucked off. A lot of people said he went to Africa. No, he won't be sitting behind a cactus having a wank. He's fucking, living in some big fucking palace, claiming to be some kind of tribal king. Anyway, what's next on the Power Hour? Now we're going to rock Rick Ross in the house. Now, you might have heard that name, you might know the name, but you might have heard it from the wrong sources and about the wrong person. So, Rick Ross grew up in South Central Los Angeles. Boom. Born in 1976. Not a big kid, small kid, scrawny, but clever. And even though he was clever, this shows you some of the circumstances. This kid was really clever, right? And everybody knew that. But he never learnt to read and write. I mean, how the fuck does that happen? And you can, I love blaming the government. I blame the government now, fucking government. But you have to look at his family. He was going to sit the kid down and say, right, look at the fucking book. right? You are going to read, and you are going to write, and you're not fucking going anywhere until you've told me what this says, you know? You have to take responsibility. So I kind of a shit environment for this kid. And in the middle of all this, he's growing up in South Central Los Angeles. He's not a big lad. And he can't read and write. And nobody's around him, apparently, to make him learn. And then he witnesses his mother shoot her brother and kill him, you know, obviously with a gun. And I've seen her tell the story. I've seen him tell the story. I've seen his brother tell the story. And they all conclude or agree that the uncle, so his mother's brother, was a generally bad man. And he wouldn't leave it. He was going after her. He's going to batter her. And so she pulled out a shooter and shot him and killed him. And this traumatised young Ricky Ross. So much so that he started playing tennis, which is shite. And he's pouncing the ball around with a racket. And he seems to like it. He's got the shorts on. And his brother's saying, "What the fuck are you doing, man? That is fucking awful." But Rick Ross is keen. So now you've got this can't read, can't write, tennis playing freak in South Central Los Angeles. What the fuck's going to go on here? You know, this is not looking good for the lad. And he gets rejected from university because he can't read and write. I don't know how the fuck he even got to the point where he was applying for a university without being able to read and write. But that's what happened to the lad. And he thought, well, that's not my trajectory, is it? Formal education. He starts hearing about cocaine, you see. And he thinks, right, okay, that sounds good. Let's hear some more about that. And so he's keeping his eye out for this shit. And meanwhile, Ronald Reagan's getting into power, and well, he's already been in power for quite a while. But his policies, got in 1980, but his policies are really taking hold now. And Clinton didn't help, I mean Bush, none of them. Twats. And so they just gutted manufacturing jobs. And these were largely the jobs that the black community could actually get. And they just hollered them and fucked them off to China, India, anywhere, and just left the black community. And then when the black people in that community become desperate and resort to crime or take drugs to fucking ease the pain, they say, look, degenerate bastards, you know, I know you haven't got a pot to piss in, but just build your own fucking factory, which you're not allowed to do because we'll come down here with the police and we'll beat fuck out of you for even trying it. So this is what he's growing up in. I mean, the game is fixed. And he's looking around and he's hearing more and more about cocaine. And he's a smart cookie. So while this is happening, while this cocaine thing is going, and he's trying to he's dipping his toe in it, he gets some. But like I say, he's not a violent kid. He doesn't even like violence. He's traumatised by violence as a kid. He'd rather play tennis, which is shit, and fuck around in little shorts. And to become a fucking cocaine dealer under those circumstances is not easy. So he got his first stash taxed. He got some, and he showed it to somebody, and they went, "Yeah, nice one. Fuck off." And smashed all his coke and had his money away. And he thought, right, I'm going to have to do better than that. Now, at this time period, coke's everywhere, obviously, but down in Bolivia, they've got this stuff called pichacata, which is cocaine that they've refined in a certain way to smoke. So they're smoking this cocaine, and the Bolivian peeps are saying it's the most addictive thing on earth. And the Bolivians know a thing or two about addictive substances. And so this ends up hitting the streets of the United States, particularly LA. And Ricky Ross was one of the people who saw and learned how to create crack from the powder, how to rock it up, as they say. And so he started providing that service for others, for the dealers. I'm going to rock it up for everyone. And he becomes a master at it, and he's fucking doing it in big bastard vats. and he gets better and better, and he eventually he starts dealing for, or getting from a guy called Blandón, who's a Nicaraguan, and he is an active member of the Contras. So if you don't know about the Contras in 1980, the Iran-Contra scandal, one of the biggest scandals of our lifetime, if you're anywhere near my age. And there was Sandinista government, left-wing Sandinista government in Nicaragua, and there was an organization called the Contras, Contra means against in Spanish, like counters, you might call it counter-revolutionaries. And so they were formed by the CIA, and they were attacking the Sandinistas. And a member of that was Blandón, and this guy's living in LA, and he's got 13 drug hotspots going at the same time, not under the fucking radar. So he starts selling to Ricky Ross. Now, don't forget, Blandón works for the CIA. This is not a conspiracy theory, it's a fact. The CIA formed the Contras. Fact. Blandón worked for the Contras. Fact. Blandón got his cocaine from Nicaragua. Fact. The Americans brought it in. The CIA brought it in on planes into Mena, Arkansas. Fact. Where Bill Clinton was the governor at the time. Fact. And then the fucking governor of a shitty little state like that, no offence to those peeps, but compared with others, it's fucking shite. He becomes the president. Fuck off. It's a fucking big bastard drug smuggling ring with Clinton and Bush and Reagan and Blandón and fucking anyone else who wants a piece. They don't give a fuck about countries and borders. And so anyway, I digress. Not too much though, because Ricky Ross is right up to his tits in this. And he starts making $1 million fucking dollars a day. He's supplying the Bloods. You know, the Bloods and the Crips. And they're taking it from state to state. The Bloods are everywhere. And so he's not operational in one state, this kid. And he's making $1 million fucking dollars a day for himself. But there's a whole fucking network. In fact, he created a kind of a culture. A lot of that music that came out around the time, late 80s, was based on Ricky Ross. I mean, they say that. I'm just thinking about the timeline. It couldn't have been really, could it? He's born in 1976. Nah. But he was talking about a lot of these people getting the cocaine from him, getting the crack from him. I have to verify some details on this. It's me that's confused, not Rick Ross. But anyway, he had an impact on the culture and the rap music. The Fuck the Police came from that South Central Los Angeles vibe, which he was a massive part in. He was actually involved in the music industry in quite a big way. And then the authorities actually identify him. He gets grassed up by some fucker in Cincinnati. And they say, right, we're going to fucking arrest this Rick Ross. He's getting too big for his boots and all that. So we're going to have to nick the cunt. And they go after him. They can't catch him. They frame him. They plant drugs on him. And eventually, I mean, you know they're going to get you. They're coming after you like that. They find out where he's living. The booyaka in there with a dog. The dog attacks him. Starts fucking biting him up. The po-po beat him. He kicks the fucking dog. The dog's fucking snarfing him down. And he kicks the dog. And so the po-po go, right, yeah, buzz him, fuck off. And smash him up. Smash the poor lad up.
Well, at one time I felt that selling cocaine was my purpose.
We was starving, just looking for a way to succeed.
The first time I seen rock cocaine was 1980.
Murder rate was sky high.
South of the 10 freeway was kind of a no man's land.
He said, you know, we're selling it to the blacks. He said, you go into these neighborhoods, there's no cops, you can sell it where you want, and when they start killing each other, nobody cares.
I was going through like $1 million worth of drugs just about every day.
That's like gold. We can make a fortune.
He was maybe the biggest guy in LA.
Rick, Freeway Rick.
Freeway Rick was getting his dope from a very big operator. I think we're into something that's bigger than us, something we really can't deal with.
They had been trafficking on behalf of the United States government.
She could prove what she was saying.
The story was mind-boggling.
When I was young, let me tell you how it was where I come from.
As I've said before, no drug network will remain alive.
There's a lot of people who think that, I made that whole thing up. What they don't realize is that the CIA admitted it.
See, I didn't know until I was sitting in prison how valuable an education was.
Yeah, drugs suck. Drugs are really bad. But the drug war is worse.
You want to know a version of health? Be the only guy playing straight in a dirty card game. And that's what the drug war is.
There are more people in prisons and jails today just for drug offenses than were incarcerated for all reasons in 1980.
Me being here is defying all odds. People don't get federal life sentences and beat them.
We've been spending billions and billions and billions of dollars every year on this war on drugs to find out that the government was involved. That's pretty astonishing.
Crack in the system.
This is Los Angeles. Even if the government just turned a blind eye and didn't do anything about it, then you have to start questioning the whole system.
Like I say, he can't fight anyway. And so he gets sent down for 21 years, does Rick Ross. And while he's in there, this is theory now, there's a prison guard, was a prison guard. Theory is this prison guard hears the legend of Rick Ross. And thinks this fucker's never getting out of prison. Because this rapper is a budding rap artist, this fucking prison guard is a budding rap artist. He wants to be a rap artist. But he hasn't got an identity, he's a fucking prison guard. You're going to rap about that? So I keep my brothers in a hole all day because I'm a piece of shit. I don't think people are going to fucking buy it. So what he's done is he's stolen Rick Ross's identity. And he's stolen his fucking name. He's stolen his history. He's stolen everything. So when you see this big fat fucking blithering dickhead in a gold chain lying about selling fucking cocaine, lying about flooding the streets with drugs, lying about causing fucking suicides and fucking overdoses, ruined families, bloated prison population, which he knows all about, scumbag, right? He's full of shit. He's a pantomime. He's a cartoon. He's copying the real Rick Ross. He's never sold a bag of drugs in his fucking life. He was a prison guard. Twat. I mean, I've got no problem with prison guards. If you're a prison guard, you don't abuse the prisoners. Fucking great. Get on with it. But don't see the fucking consequences of the drug culture. Don't see the consequences of these fucking bastards in the CIA and Nicaragua and all over Central South America. Don't see the victims of it. Don't see the families coming in crying to see these men and women who've been locked up for the only way that they could find food for the families, and then go out and fucking glamorize it and glorify it and fucking lie about it on top of all that. Pooh, get off my street, you fat bastard. Or I snap your fucking neck in front of all your fucking mates as well. Dickhead. Anyway. Nikki Barnes. Nikki Barnes. Slightly more famous than the others, this guy, Nicky. But even then, very much undertold story. Grows up in Harlem. Poor. Dirt poor. When was he born? 1932. So, he's a man in the 60s. But he grows up poor and he's got an abusive father, the typical fucking rat who does what he can get away with. Does what he can get away with and doesn't do anything that he don't want to do. And that includes being with his family, looking after his wife, being a man in general. And so he's out doing, getting drunk, taking drugs. He's coming home, beating his wife in front of the kids. I mean, that is just fucking rank. And anyway, this is how Nikki Barnes is growing up watching this shit. And his house is a fucking dump and a hellhole. And then he looks out the window and it's probably even worse. And he's getting in with this, with a gang. It's just kind of typical, a gang called the Tiny Turks, who were older than he was, and getting into the crime, naughty young men. And he was a boy at the time, but he's getting into it and he's showing some flair. And so these Tiny Turks, because they like him, they give him a zip gun, homemade gun, wrap it and strap it, pop. And he's got one of them, but you want to be careful with that because it might not work. And he found that out. they pulled it on his dad, because he gets in, his dad's beating up his mum. He goes, you need to get the fuck off that woman, yeah? What are you going to do about it, you little twat? Fucking gun surprise, bang. But it was shit, and it just fucking bounced off his jacket, apparently. Absolutely shit. It exploded into flames. And so, with that, he jumps out the window, and then he's on the streets now, and he gets into smack. I mean, becomes a smackhead, because he'd already found a stash. His dad apparently was holding a stash for someone else. How true that is, I don't know. But he found it and started having some with him and his fucking mate. And he became a smackhead, but he was a smackhead who was dealing to pay for his habit. And eventually he gets caught for dealing, and he goes down, cleans himself up a bit, meets a guy called Maddie Madonna, who's a mafia guy, part of the Madonna family. There's a family of these fuckers. And he learns a lot in prison from Maddie Madonna. And he comes out and he's got suggestions from Madonna about what to do and where to go and how to go about it. And so he gets gifted a bit of this and gifted a bit of that, and he starts to show some real business promise. He's a man now. He's done a bit of time. He's been in there with some real serious people, and he's got no desire to take smack, none at all. Comes out, gets himself a nice girlfriend, and she was known as Sister. I don't know what the origin of that is that a fucking name or not, or she's a sister in the hood sense, I don't know, but she was street as fuck. So he starts setting up these distribution centres and packaging centres, mixing really, I think, mainly. So this is actually, you see this in American Gangster, where it's supposed to be Frank Lucas doing this, but this was actually Nikki Barnes, because she said, well, we'll get some women in a room, right? We'll have them mixing it up, and we'll have them doing it naked, so they can't steal. Right? They can't steal anything because they're fucking naked. How true that is, I don't know. But that was the idea, and it came from this woman called Sister. So he marries her, and now he's getting big time. He joins the Nation of Islam, becomes extremely religious, then he gets sent down again. He gets caught, he goes down, he's in prison, meets Crazy Joe Gallo, another mafia figure, but far superior, well, much higher level than anybody really. He was he should have been the boss of the Colombo crime family before it became the Colombo crime family in many people's eyes. Very, very mythical and emblematic gangster Joe Gallo. But Joe Gallo was extremely intelligent and soulful. He was a hippie, apart from being a murderous bastard and a violent fucker. He was a hippie. He was a reader, serious, reflective reader, Joe Gallo. And he put Nikki Barnes, who's also extremely intelligent, onto an emotional, psychological, spiritual path to enlightenment, which Nikki Barnes embraced wholeheartedly. So anyway, he gets out of prison after all this, and he's, as I say, highly intelligent, and he forms a group called the Council. Okay, and there's about 8 of them in total. I'm not going into that too much, but he'd learned from the Italians about hierarchy and about protecting yourself, about insulating yourself, about how not to get too identified and caught basically by the FBI and all that, and never get seen with the package in your hand. Keep yourself 3 steps away from the street and all that, which he learnt well. And he rose and he rose and he became extremely powerful. And he was rocking, I think, about 25 million for himself in profit. And this is back in the 70s, rocking $25 million a year in personal gain. That's not reflective of his empire. So he was the heroin fucking kingpin of New York, mainly of Brooklyn, right? But he was dealing basically for the mafia, for a guy called Carmine Galante, who ran the French Connection that we talked about earlier. We're going from Turkey through Italy up into the south of France and round to New York or to Montreal. Carmine Galante ran that until he was the victim of a very high profile hit, where you'll see him get blasted off his fucking chair, and he's lying back and he's shot blasted, and he's still got the cigar in his mouth. So that was who was running the show at the time. But Nicky became extremely powerful, you know, and he actually went after a mafia member called Puglisi, who he was fucking around with the stash. So you're supposed to be dealing it, but you're fucking double dipping it. You're mixing it, you're fucking around with it, and you're taking an extra few kilos for yourself. And what you're actually putting out on the street is fucking garbage. And of course, people are coming and saying, "Hey, Nicky," or "You that works for Nicky, that works for the guy that works for Nicky," whatever, right? Your gear's fucking shit. So they put a hit out on Puglisi, and they got him, they killed him. And so doing that to a main member of the mafia, and then saying to him, "Listen, don't come down to fucking Harlem. We've got as many guns as you have." That gave him a lot of status, and so too much. The authorities started going after him. Couldn't keep him. Couldn't not fucking get the man in jail. You know, he was organised, and so they started calling him Mr. Untouchable. He loves this. He's Mr. Untouchable now. And he has a party on top of the Time Life fucking building. You know, they've got a pool and all that on top of the building. He's invited all these gangster mates. Half the fucking waiters are like, "Shh. Do you want another one? Shh. You know, I think it all went to his head. In one way or another, it all went to his fucking head. You don't do that, obviously. And so now he's very much in the firing line. And I don't know what he was thinking on this one, but his lawyer got a call from New York Times Magazine saying, "We're going to come down tomorrow and take some shots of Nikki Barnes, some photos for our magazine." And the lawyer says, "I don't think you understand." And the journalist says, "No, you don't understand. If you don't let us come down there and do that, we're going to put his mugshot up on the front of our magazine, where he looks like a fucking psycho, which is what he is. So you can let us take some nice pictures and put that up instead." So the lawyer says, "Okay, what time?" So they go down. Fucking Nikki Barnes thinks, "Oh, this is great." He gets a tie, a red, white and blue tie. And I've literally heard him say something like, "Red, white and blue means me and you, because we're all American," whatever. So he's posing. He's got his fucking shades on, blah. And he's got his tie on, and he's got his suit on, and he's wearing thousands and thousands of dollars. And he's posing like fuck. And, you know, that was a fucking stupid idea. And so now, Jimmy Carter, the president at the time, he looks at that and he says, "Who the fuck's this?" "Oh yeah, that's a smack dealer from New York. We call him Mr. Untouchable because you can't prosecute the fucker." "What do you mean we can't prosecute him?" "Oh, we can't catch him. He's on the front of the fucking magazine." So, all right, sorry, Mr. President. And now then they start going after him now proper, right? We've got to get this fucker in prison, innit? So they get the first anonymous jury in the history of the United States. Nobody knows who these fucking people are. There's 12 of them. Is that good or bad? I don't know. But such was Nikki Barnes' reputation for corruption, jury tampering, intimidation, violence in general, murder, right? That they formed an anonymous jury, so it would be impossible for Nikki Barnes or any of his peeps to get to them and evade conviction that way. And that's what they did. And he gets convicted, Nikki Barnes, and he gets sent down, and so does everybody else. 18 of them get sent down. One guy, his protege, a guy called Nicky Fisher, the heir apparent to Nikki Barnes' throne, Guy Fisher. Did I say Nicky Fisher? Well, fuck it. Guy Fisher. And he's a smart cookie, and he's the only one who gets off. So Guy Fisher walks out. There's a lot of confusion about this. Suspicion, you might say. Walks away. takes over the enterprise, takes over the council, and starts shagging his fucking bird. So, you know, Nikki Barnes is married and all that, but he's got a girlfriend, a pretty little thing called Shemeka. So he's not content with taking over his business after I think he's done something with the jewellery that Nikki Barnes wasn't able to do. He's also going to shag his fucking bird in front of everybody. He's like he's parking up on the corner, shouting people over so they could see him in the car with Nikki Barnes' woman. And so Nikki Barnes, he's not having this. He decides to strike back, and he starts doing that. He starts fucking grassing people up, giving the names in to the authorities, and they start getting busted. So one guy goes to Shemeka, he puts a gun to her chest and fucking executes her as a warning to Nikki Barnes. Listen, this is how far we're willing to go. Right? Stop what you're doing, take your sentence. Nikki Barnes says, fuck that, you know, that's not the way I roll, and I'll see you boys in here. Carries on grassing them up. He goes around with a fucking black hood on. I don't know if that was his idea. It looks like somebody did that to him. He's got this pointy black, looks like a black fucking KKK outfit he's rocking. Can't have been his idea, surely.
All roads led to Harlem, and all roads led to Nikki Barnes in those days.
Nikki Barnes was the face of heroin trafficking during the 1970s.
Every place he went, people just wanted to be around him. He was a true superstar.
He was the John Gotti before John Gotti.
The Al Capone of Harlem.
Our black godfather.
He had hooked up with the mob, with the big Italians, and that guaranteed a lot of drugs and that they were going to be good.
I mean, these guys could have been on the Fortune 500. There's a CEO and a president and a CFO and a COO.
What I call sidewalk executive.
There was something that was professional that was being done.
You know, so the life was good. I'd have like $2-3 million in a box of money.
He had that benevolence to him, the Thanksgiving Day turkeys, the spending money. He was giving something back to the community that he was raping and abusing and killing.
Nikki Barnes always had a case, or two, or three. He was acquitted. Jury said not guilty.
He was Mr. Untouchable.
You got the president saying, I want him off the streets.
You don't go na-na-na-na-na.
Yo, what are you, crazy? What are you doing?
From a dream to a nightmare.
This is a brotherhood.
Nikki Barnes was a coward.
It's revenge, revenge, revenge.
There is no loyalty. There's treachery.
Go ahead. Tell me what it is you have in mind.
They were a couple of friends of mine that were supposed to be doing things for me, you know.
Yeah.
And, well, they're doing things against me, really.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to get back at them.
They could call me a snitch. I'm out therein. It's not as though I say, I forgive them. No, that ain't happening.
And anyway, they put him up on the stand and he's crying because he has to, you know, betray everything he stands for and everything he grew up with. Don't know if that's why he was crying or not. And every single one of them gets life. He puts them all behind bars. And then he gets out eventually, because he's a professional grass. He goes fucking court to court, round the country, grassing on people, and doing it very well. Because as I say, he is intelligent and articulate. They let him out, and as far as I know, he's still rocking the witness protection program. Unless unless he's died while I've been sitting here saying this, he's still rocking the witness protection program. So today on the Power Hour, we have rocked Lester, Lloyd, Kolk, aka Jim Brown, Frank Matthews. We have rocked Nikki Barnes. We have rocked Rick Ross. We've done it in any order you want. And what do we know about all these guys? They come from deprived areas. They used whatever resources were available to them to become multi-millionaires. But in the process, they did a lot of damage to the communities, and they murdered people, you know, en masse, with the exception of Rick Ross, who I don't think murdered anybody personally. He was fucking rocking it with the Bloods. So his hands are dirty as fuck. Power to the people, even these people. Power to you, power to me. Boom.